Welcome to SuperCoach and welcome to another player profile. Going to take a look at Lance Buddy Franklin today, a man that I wrote off last year, interestingly enough, and it'll be good to take a bit of a look at his season of last as well, to just take a look at a few of the numbers and over the last decade or so what he's been able to produce, because as far as key position players go, he's been about as good as they come, really. I mean, particularly at his peak of the powers in 2008, 2012. Averaging regularly between the 107 and 116. I think 2009 was, of course, the down patch, 87.9, but some massive years in there. Last few, though, obviously his ceiling has gone a little bit lower and the inconsistency has continued, and that hasn't always meant inconsistency scoring-wise, because I think he has got better at doing that, but naturally, being a key forward, you're going to cop that no matter who you are, the odd low one and the odd big one. But just looking from 2013, rolling through until the present, 90.4, 99.9, 87.1, 94.6, and of course, that was my argument for him being basically irrelevant in fantasy land. I mean, I wrote him off last year. I mean, I guess I've got to own that. And then he came out with a 98.3, which is a very good average. And I must say, coming in around 21, I thought my prediction was looking pretty good. He was averaging 90.4. Then he went 164, 98 and 183 to end the season, which underlines what Franklin's capable of. Now, it doesn't really matter when you produce those big scores. I mean, they all count to a season average. But certainly there would have been quite a few Franklin owners who lost faith throughout the season, as his average did waver between that low 90s mark and the mid 90s. And funnily enough, his final average was basically as good as it got for the whole season, off the back of some amazing scores. And that's what he's capable of course, bagging the 10 goals up there in the final round, boom, goes 180. But if we break it down over the course of the season, his actual hundreds, he scored 9 of them, pretty reasonable. Scores of 120 plus, 5 of those, aside from the 2 I already mentioned, 125, 160 and 122. And below 75, the 5 of those as well, 70, 74, 65, 48 and a 42. So I think in years gone by we've seen worse scores in terms of the real low points for Franklin. And as I said, he has developed that consistency throughout his career. But I must say, 31 years of age, 540k. I'm certainly not in him for this season. I was off him last year, and once again, I've got to be off him for this year. He has become a bit more consistent in the games per year as well. 22 home and away matches for the past 2 seasons. Of course, once upon a time, he was a suspension risk as well as the odd injury. So as years have gone by, he has improved that risky element that Franklin often had attached to him. But I just can't be too convinced. I mean, let's face it, Franklin is on the way down. There's no doubt about that. Of course, his averages, you could mount a case. Last year was his best averaging season for 3 years. You could argue, well, why couldn't he do that again? If there was any reason to write him off last year, probably valid, fair enough. Why would that be valid now since he's fought back? I'm just not so sure that we're going to be seeing consistent 99, 100 averages from Franklin. At some point, it's going to drop away, and I think it's too risky. That's not to say he might average 96. Maybe that's good enough for you. Are there better options? I know our forward line at this point in time, mind you, it is only mid-January, is looking perhaps difficult to find some really reliable guys. Maybe you want to go with a proven performer. He might average 94, 95. That'll be good enough for you. Fair enough. But when I look at the Franklin selection, I see a guy who inevitably is going to fall away. You don't all of a sudden find career best form very often in your early 30s. We've occasionally seen it, of course, but I don't think Franklin's that type of a player. So at some stage, whether it's through his body, through a yard of pace, through a Swans performance and them dropping away, all of these things could happen next year. They could happen in 2020. You're not quite sure, but I think if we're paying big coin, there's just a little bit too much risk for me in the fact that we all know that inevitably he is going to drop away. You know, time is undefeated. It gets you eventually. It's just a matter of when. And I always personally feel a little bit safer maybe taking a slight risk with a bloke who's 25, 26 and has a similar case study to a Franklin. If you take that age bracket back a touch, then all of a sudden it gives you that hope to go, well, they are pretty much in their prime. There's reasons for them finding perhaps a career best season or certainly finding their best form again. Where for Franklin, I do feel plateauing is the very, very best we could see from him. And if you did that, you'd probably take 98 average. But I just think of it talking in terms of percentages. Let me do it off the top of my head. Percentage of him plateauing, I'd probably give him 30 to 40%. Percentage of him dropping off ever so slightly back to the early to mid 90s, I'd have to put that in the 50 to 60%. And then if you want to say we're calling that 30 and 50 from what I just said, there's got to be a 10 to 15% chance that he could really drop off, because it does happen sometimes. Of course, pre-season we might want to gauge where he's at physically, and sometimes you can pick up on those things through the pre-season. But as the percentages suggest that I've just said, my prediction would be something between a 92 and a 96 at a guess. If you're happy to back him in and you've got a little bit more hope than me, and you'd be happy to take a 96 to a 98, you know, that's fair enough. But I just feel as if there's a slight more risk involved with him as opposed to some other options that we've got up our sleeve. But it does make for an interesting discussion. I feel Franklin does divide people over the course of his career in terms of fantasy. I know I've been on him a number of times and had him in my team on a number of seasons, and at times it's really helped me. At times it's been a real headache. So I'd like to hear your thoughts as well on where you're at with Lance Franklin coming into 2018. So by all means, comment away and give me your thoughts. Give me an average prediction if you like. And yeah, of course, like the video, comment as I said, subscribe to the channel, always important. And let me know what you thought of the tennis one as well. I'll have a look at the comments on that actual video to get a gauge of that. But hopefully you're enjoying a bit of one-day cricket and a bit of Australian Open action. I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.